ADHD is not just a childhood problem. Learn what ADHD symptoms look like and what you can do about it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Hi, I'm Simon, and today we're talking about ADHD in adults. Life can be a balancing act for any adult, but when you find yourself constantly late, disorganized, forgetful, and overwhelmed by your responsibilities, you may have ADHD. ADHD affects many adults, and its wide variety of frustrating symptoms can hinder everything from your relationships to your career. While scientists aren't sure what causes ADHD, they think it's likely caused by a combination of your genes, environment, and slight differences in how our brains are hardwired. Now, if you were diagnosed with childhood ADHD, chances are that you've carried at least some of those symptoms into your adulthood. But even if you were never diagnosed as a child, that doesn't mean that ADHD can't affect you as an adult. ADHD often goes unrecognized throughout your childhood. This was especially common in the past when very few people were aware of it. Instead of recognizing the symptoms and identifying the real issue, your family, teachers, or others may have labeled you as the daydreamer, the goof-off child, a slacker, a troublemaker, or just a bad student. Alternatively, you may have been able to compensate for the symptoms of ADHD when you were young, only to run into problems as your responsibilities increased as an adult. The more balls you're now trying to keep in the air, pursuing a career, raising a family, running a household, the greater the demand on your abilities to organize, focus, and remain calm. Now, this can be challenging for anyone, but if you have ADHD, it can feel downright fucking impossible. The good news, however, is no matter how overwhelming it may feel, the challenges of ADHD are beatable. With education, support, and a little bit of creativity, you can learn to manage the symptoms of adult ADHD, even turning some weaknesses into strengths. It's never too late to turn the difficulties of adult ADHD around and start succeeding on your own terms. In adults, ADHD often looks different than it does in children, and its symptoms are unique to each individual. The following categories highlight common symptoms of adult ADHD. Do your best to identify the areas where you experience difficulty. Once you pinpoint your most problematic symptoms, you can start implementing strategies for dealing with them. Attention deficit can be a misleading label. Adults with ADHD are able to focus on tasks they find stimulating or engaging, but have difficulty staying focused on and attending to mundane tasks. You may become easily distracted by irrelevant sights or sounds, bounce from one activity to another, or just become bored quickly. Symptoms in this category are often overlooked because they are less outwardly disruptive by the ADHD symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity, but they can be every bit as troublesome. Some examples of that would be becoming easily distracted by low priority activities or external events that others may ignore. Having so many simultaneous thoughts that it's difficult to just follow one. Difficulties in paying attention or focusing, such as when reading or listening to others. Frequently daydreaming or zoning out without realizing it, even in the middle of a conversation. Struggling to complete tasks, even ones that seem simple. A tendency to overlook details, leading to errors or incomplete work. Poor listening skills. For example, having a hard time remembering conversations and following direction. Getting quickly bored and searching for new stimulating experiences. While you're probably aware that people with ADHD have difficulty focusing on tasks that aren't interesting to them, you may not be aware that there is another side to that. A tendency to become absorbed in tasks that are stimulating and rewarding. This paradoxical symptom is called hyperfocus. So hyperfocus is actually a coping mechanism for distraction, a way of tuning out the chaos. It can be so strong that you become oblivious to everything that's going on around you. For example, you could be so engrossed in a book or a TV show or your computer that you completely lose track of time and you neglect your responsibilities. Hyperfocus can be an asset when channeled into something productive, but can also lead to work and relationship problems if unchecked. When you have adult ADHD, life often seems chaotic and out of control. Staying organized and staying on top of things can be extremely challenging, as is sorting out which information is relevant for the task at hand, prioritizing your to-do list, keeping track of tasks and responsibilities, and of course managing your time. Common symptoms of disorganization and forgetfulness could include poor organizational skills, your home, your office, your desk, or your car is extremely cluttered and messy, tendency to procrastinate, trouble starting or finishing projects, chronic laziness, frequently forgetting deadlines, commitments, and appointments, constantly losing or misplacing things like your keys, your wallet, your phone, some documents, or even bills, and underestimating the amount of time it will take to complete a task. If you suffer with symptoms in this category, you may have trouble inhibiting your behaviors, comments, and responses. You may act before you think or react without considering the consequences. You may find yourself interrupting others, blurting out comments, and rushing through tasks without reading instructions. If you have impulse problems, staying patient is extremely difficult. For better or worse, you may dive headfirst into situations and find yourself in potentially risky circumstances. Symptoms include frequently interrupting others or speaking over them, poor self-control or addictive behaviors, blurting out thoughts that may be considered rude or inappropriate without thinking, acting recklessly or spontaneously without regard for consequences, trouble behaving in socially acceptable ways, such as like maybe sitting still through a long meeting. So many adults with ADHD have a hard time managing their feelings, especially when it comes to emotions like anger or frustration. Common emotional symptoms of ADHD can include being easily frustrated or stressed out, irritability, or short, often explosive temper, low self-esteem, and a sense of insecurity or underachievement, trouble staying motivated, and hypersensitivity to criticism. I have a full video of ADHD and impulsivity. I will leave a link down below if you are interested in watching that. Hyperactivity in adults with ADHD may appear the same as it does in kids. You may be highly energetic and perpetually on the go, as if driven by a motor. For many people with ADHD, however, the symptoms of hyperactivity become more subtle and internal as they grow. Common symptoms of hyperactivity in adults include feelings of inner restlessness, agitation, and racing thoughts, getting bored easily, craving excitement, and the tendency to take risks, talking excessively, and doing a million things at once, trouble sitting still, like you're constantly fidgeting. Adults with ADHD are much less likely to show hyperactivity than their younger counterparts. Only a small slice of adults with ADHD, in fact, suffer from prominent symptoms of hyperactivity. Remember that names can be deceiving, and you may very well have ADHD if you have one or more of the symptoms I mentioned, even if you lack hyperactivity. If you are just discovering that you have adult ADHD, chances are that you suffered over the years due to the unrecognized problem. You may feel like that you've been struggling to keep your head above water, overwhelmed by the constant stress caused by procrastination, disorganization, and handling demands at the last minute. People may have labeled you lazy, stupid, irresponsible because of your forgetfulness or difficulty completing certain tasks, and you may have begun to think of yourself in these negative terms as well. ADHD that is undiagnosed and untreated can have wide-reaching effects and cause problems in virtually every area of your life. The wide-reaching effects of ADHD can lead to embarrassment, frustration, disappointment, hopelessness, and loss of confidence. You may feel like that you will never be able to get your life under control or fulfill your potential. That's why a diagnosis of adult ADHD can be an enormous source of relief and hope. It helps you understand what you're up against for the first time and realize that you're not to blame. The difficulties that you've experienced stem from ADHD. They are not a result of personal weakness or a character flaw. When you have ADHD, it is so easy to end up thinking that there's something wrong with you, but it's okay to be different. ADHD isn't an indicator of your intelligence or your capability. You may experience difficulties in certain areas, but that doesn't mean that you can't find your niche and experience success. The key is to discover your strengths and capitalize on them. It can be helpful to think about ADHD as a collection of traits that are both positive and negative, just like any other set of qualities you may possess. Along with the impulsivity and disorganization of ADHD, for example, often come incredible creativity, passion, energy, out-of-the-box thinking, and a constant flow of original ideas. So figure out your strengths and set up your environment in a way that supports them. Alright guys, well that's the video, and if you want to know more about ADHD, make sure you check my playlist. It's labeled ADHD, and I talk about lots of other topics that may help you or someone you know if you are struggling with ADHD. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share it with anybody and everybody, and click the notification bell so you know when I'm uploading. Okay, so until next time, okay, love you, bye. When you have adult ADHD, the good news, however, is no matter how overwhelming, having so many a tendency to overlook shit, trouble starting or finishing projects, trouble starting or finishing products, no,